The talk's all back to basics, and what I'm going to tell you about is three things, okay? So there's three things I want you to get from this talk today. Number one is that we've completely lost our minds in crypto. We've gone horribly wrong off the tracks from where we started in 2008. The train is not just off the tracks, it's completely derailed. And it feels like it's the end of the world, but it's not. So I think it's a good point in time to ask the question, where did we go wrong? Right? Number two, we're going to talk about the original mission of Bitcoin, which was peer-to-peer transactions. Okay. And number three, we're going to talk about the future. Where do we go from here? Well, it's been 14 years since 2008. And we're at something around 4% crypto adoption today. But the question for the future is, how do we get from 4% to 40% to 100%? And only 1% of the world is even using self-custody today. And so what tools do we need to build? I'm going to introduce you to a project that I've been working on called Libre, which is a new blockchain for scaling Bitcoin and Tether, powering adoption, and the wallet Bitcoin Libre, which is has important elements, I think, for powering the next wave of adoption. Right? Very important elements to getting to that 10, 40, 100% of adoption. So, part one, what? What happened? SBF famously tweeted this one what a few weeks ago. And so let's start with this first thing. So it's been a wild year. If you would have told me a year ago that we would have had a year like this, where we had a meltdown of Terra Luna, we had a meltdown of Celsius, the king of, or the godfather of VoIP, completely crashing, these centralized entities, and also FTX with SBF stealing, $3 billion into a personal loan from one of the biggest exchanges in the world that crumbled in like 2 days. It's been a wild ride, right? So you'd think this was science fiction, but no, this is actual reality. This is not some fictional story that we're making up here. And the crazy thing is that we have this problem. People want to find yields. So there are people out there looking for these extraordinary yields. They're hoping to have passive income and earn and find crazy returns. And basically, this is just the opposite of Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin was intended to do, Satoshi would be rolling over in his grave. And we have the apes, we have all these interesting things going on, punks and unicorns, and they really have nothing to do with peer-to-peer transactions, right? And we have DeFi protocols that are very obtuse, very difficult to use. I'm a strong supporter of DeFi, and I do believe that DeFi is the future. And I think that what we've learned from this past year is that decentralized, transparent entities are the solution, not the problem, because everything that crashed and fell was opaque and centralized, right? And we also have DeFi protocols being run by total criminals. Even Sifu, who stole tons of millions of dollars from the Quadriga exchange, also had a DeFi protocol that he started this year. And we've just come so far from this. A peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Satoshi Nakamoto, this is the Bitcoin white paper. Has everyone here read the Bitcoin white paper? If you haven't, I strongly recommend it. It's only a few pages long, and it's very enlightening. Read it again, because Bitcoin is where we started. And these things that are happening this past year, this is not going to take over the world. All right? GameFi and NFTs, they might have a place eventually. I think they're really fun. It's awesome ideas. But truthfully, we need to go back to basics. So that's part two. We're going to talk about some actual, real-world problems that crypto and Bitcoin can solve today. Right? So let's go back to 2008, the launch of Bitcoin. And in the Genesis block of Bitcoin, there was a mention for this article, right? Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks. That's actually in the Genesis block. And the reason Satoshi put that in the Genesis block is what? He was saying this is the problem. This is the real problem, that these centralized entities are controlling money. And what we need is a permissionless system that nobody can mess with, an immutable system of a world currency. Right? And that's why I put that in the Genesis block. Now, that indicates that that was the problem in 2008. Now in 2022, well, we have the same problem today, but it's bigger. It's even bigger than it was. And it's even invaded our own industry that's trying to fix the original problem, where we have centralized opaque entities with a lot of control over the currencies that they're printing and also stealing money from people. And also we have is a major debt problem in the United States, way bigger than it was in 2000. And we have inflation, 7% in the United States. Now, we might not notice it that much, but inflation is happening around the world. In Lebanon, as Mike was saying just a few minutes ago, there's something like 190% inflation. So if you're living in Lebanon, you're definitely noticing that the money that you earned in January is worth half what it was. And so these people are looking for alternative systems. Argentina, another place, where they don't want you buying foreign assets. You pay 30% to buy dollars there on the market. And Nigeria, they're noticing it there too, because in Nigeria, they're taxing all these digital assets now, and they don't want you using anything but their e-naira, right? And so we're in a much worse situation today than we were in 2008. But we're still lacking a solution. And the problem really comes down to trust. It's human nature to look for things that we can trust, and a lot of people do not want to take self-custody of their assets because it's a lot of responsibility, so we end up trusting brands, following along with what other people are doing, and trusting these centralized things like Celsius and FTX, where people are using FTX like a bank account because they couldn't get a bank account for some of their businesses and stuff, and unfortunately they lost their money. That's gone, most likely. And so now most of the world has 20% plus inflation today. Even 30, 40 and up. You can find this data online. And the government's giving away money still to whatever they happen to wake up that day and feel like doing some handouts to their cronies and their friends, the banks and businesses like, Larry Fink from BlackRock or some ESG startup or Tesla. And it's like George Carlin said, it's a big club, and you're not in it. You're not getting that money. So they're basically stealing money from us to give out to their own special interests. And they're handing out this money in exchange for favors. And that's basically the definition of corruption. And in places like El Salvador or Panama, they only have the US dollar. They can't even control the money printer themselves. They're dependent on our money printer there because they don't even have their own currencies. And that's why El Salvador chose to make Bitcoin legal tender last year. And, I had the opportunity with Brock of visiting there, meeting with the government, and learning a lot from the local people about what's happening there. And I think to a degree, Bitcoin is working there. I can tell you more about it if you want to ask me about it later. But back to Satoshi, Satoshi's idea was very simple. Incorruptible money system that nobody can print with peer-to-peer transactions that nobody can limit. And no third parties to depend on. So no trusting third parties at all. We wouldn't have to trust this guy. We wouldn't have to trust this guy. And we should be taking self-custody of our assets and using peer-to-peer transactions. So a lot of other stuff that's happening is distractions, unfortunately, is where I think we're at. And the problem that crypto should be solving is peer-to-peer transactions and making it really usable for people. And things like NFTs and GameFi might be really great. It's kind of like modern contemporary classical music. There might be a few thousand people who are really into it. But for the most people, what they really care about is paying for the rent, being able to afford medicine, having access to basic necessities, and financial inclusion. Right? So let's talk about part 3, which is the future. So where are we going and how are we going to get there? Well, I think the future is really Bitcoin and stablecoins together. And recently in Florida at the Bitcoin conference a few weeks ago, Michael Saylor was saying the same thing. One of the biggest Bitcoin advocates was saying, we need a wallet that has stablecoins as well, right? And so currencies that are actually used as money that allow peer-to-peer transactions. Now, Bitcoin is doing well. We have over 100 million people using Bitcoin. And that's great. That's a serious number. And we still have $600 or $700 billion market cap, right? Even in a down market. So at least to some extent, Bitcoin adoption is happening. But if we look at the daily active Bitcoin addresses, it's sort of flatlined. You know, there's not that many people using Bitcoin daily. I meet a lot of Bitcoiners, and I'm like, hey, do you have a Bitcoin wallet on your phone? Most of them do not. So a lot of Bitcoiners are not even using Bitcoin for transactions. But stablecoin adoption has been going up and to the right. So there's been a lot more adoption of stablecoins in places like Lebanon, where they are using stablecoins to hold their money and even buy groceries. And so, as I was saying, I spent some time in 2021 in El Salvador, but also in Panama, Guatemala, Honduras, around Central and South America, meeting local people, local Bitcoiners, and also government officials. And people are excited about not having to deal with banks and custody their own money. They really are. And the governments are interested in learning about what's happening and how they could make use of it too. But unfortunately, there is a lot of corruption. And there's also a lot of people that do not have access to bank accounts. So this is just all around the world. There's something like 20% of people have access to a bank account. And they don't have access to easy to spend digital cash, easy digital dollars, right? And no matter how many times you show people this chart there and tell them Bitcoin's gonna be worth more in 5 years, it doesn't matter to them because they're looking at more of a timeline like this. And this is a 2-week timeline up to now of the price of Bitcoin, just in the past 2 weeks. And what they're saying is like, well, I maybe could pay my rent there, but I couldn't have paid my rent 2 weeks ago. And well, I could afford more food now than I could have afforded 2 weeks ago. That doesn't really work the day-to-day volatility, you know what I mean? And so the solution really has to be stable coins and Bitcoin together, right? Now leads me to what we're building with Libre is just like Satoshi, we took several technologies that exist today and we combined them together. So we have a delegated proof of stake network that uses SecP256K1 cryptography, same as Bitcoin. And there's nodes all over the world there. So these are the nodes running on Libre today. This is a graphic I just downloaded this morning. And so we have pegged Bitcoin on the P network that uses an MPC network that runs on various chains and provides peg-in and peg-out assets that are interoperable, interchangeable on many chains. And we have the Bitcoin Lightning Network integrated for very fast Bitcoin transactions. And so we have a mobile wallet called Bitcoin Libre, which we'll watch a little video of here. There's a swap in there where you can completely permissionless swap Tether for Bitcoin. It's the cheapest place to swap Tether and Bitcoin on the internet. And you can also provide liquidity there. And then if you swap for some Bitcoin, for example, you can go to another wallet like Moon Wallet, which is a Lightning wallet, and generate an invoice in Lightning and move that Bitcoin out to another wallet, take it wherever you want, do whatever you want with it. Right? So you can take that invoice and put it into Libre, and Libre will initiate a transaction on Lightning to another wallet. It works great through these Lightning service provider nodes, where Lightning nodes can earn by doing transactions like this. Oh, we also have a wheel where you can win some free sats every day. Now, Libre, where we're at now, we have 385,000, more than 385,000 accounts, very fast transactions, and a bunch of nodes running already. We have a mint rush coming up on December 15th, which is the launch of the governance coin. It's a public, fair launch. What's interesting and unique about this is there's no coins for the team or founders or anyone. We're buying in at the same time as everyone else, and 100% of the funds raised in the mint rush goes right into a liquidity pool on Libre to provide liquidity for the token. No funds are raised for running or building anything. I mean, it's already very built, so it's not like one of those projects that holds a bunch of coins and never builds anything and then takes your money and walks away. Right? And everyone who contributes is an owner of the liquidity pool. So it's something we're doing that's very unique, and there's information at libre.org, and you can come and ask me about it. But I think seeing is believing, and so what I encourage everyone to do is scan this QR code, download Bitcoin Libre, and give it a try. And I'll happily give anyone a walkthrough of the app, if you don't want to download this yourself even. But you download it on your phone, come see me afterwards, and I'll send you some Bitcoin or Tether. I'll move to the side. That's true. Right, so this is Bitcoin Libre. This is one of the wallets that works on Libre. It's not the only wallet. We've definitely made a lot of effort to make everything very decentralized because we are decentralization maximalists, but also usability maximalists. So it's a very easy to use interface. And so just for a recap, what did we go over here? Number one, we've completely lost the plot. We're not solving the original problem. We veered off too far. FTX blew up. Hopefully that's the last thing that we need to tolerate in terms of the world of centralized blow-ups, but probably not. And we need to get back to basics. So back to basics means not having to trust these guys. These guys, it's pretty clear they didn't believe. This is Alex Mashinsky from Celsius and of course SBF. They didn't believe in Satoshi's vision. They didn't want to help the world. What they wanted to do was stick their hands into your bank accounts. And they succeeded at that with their centralized opaque wrap. So number three is the future. And what does the future look like? It's, number one, decentralized platforms, right? I'm sure there will be other great solutions like Libre that are building decentralized solutions now more than ever, that provide all of the great stuff that FTX was doing, and BitMEX was doing for you to trade. We have some plans to build out some of that too. No reliance on central third parties. So this is something that I think is really interesting because even a lot of Bitcoin wallets today are centralized. Bitcoin wallets and Bitcoin companies like Strike, Swan Bitcoin, Wallet of Satoshi. These are custodial solutions, and a lot of Lightning wallets, unfortunately, are custodial in that sense. So read the terms of service of these things. You'll see it's right in there. And the third thing is simple and easy to use Bitcoin and stablecoin. Right? And I think that's how we get to the next wave of adoption, is solutions like Libre, and we're going to see a huge jump off of technology really helping people solve problems in the real world. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very quick onboarding. Yeah, we've done a lot for you. We're usability maximalists, like I said, so thank you. That's my presentation. And does anyone have any questions? Cool. Thanks. Come see me afterwards, and I'll give you some good